Hi everyone, it's Pete here from the Paint Toolkit, and I hope everybody's well. And this morning we're going to do another Paint Toolkit interview, and I've got two lovely young ladies with me called Emma and Bernie. And rather than me tell you what about them, I would like them to tell you, let them tell you a bit more about themselves. So who's going to be the first? I'll tell you what I'll do. Emma, do you want to introduce yourself and tell the people, the viewers, what you do and what you're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, sure, Pete. So my name is Emma Meehan and I'm a dance researcher, and I'm based at Coventry University, where there's a Centre for Dance Research. So my area of interest has been these kind of approaches to movement, where you can reflect on your own body, feel what it feels like to be in your own body, and kind of be aware of sensations and notice habits of movement you might have, and then maybe finding different ways of movement that interrupt habits that might be unhelpful. So that's kind of what I've been focusing on for many years, but just now moving into looking at how it might support people who are living with pain.
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And Bernie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, my name is Bernie Carter. I'm Professor of Children's Nursing at Edge Hill University. And I guess my interest has been in chronic pain for a long time, mostly working with children and their families, and a lot of the time looking at the really difficult to treat pain with children who've got quite a lot of disabilities and maybe other disadvantages. And as somebody who comes from a health background, I know the limits of medicine and kind of like some of the clinical interventions, and I've always been looking to try and find other ways of helping people manage their pain. And there was kind of like a serendipitous moment when my interest in movement and creative ways of approaching pain kind of coincided with meeting Emma, who's kind of got a lot of the answers that I think I've been looking for, her and other dancers. So we've been exploring that sort of thing together.
Okay, so I can take it you're working together on a project.
That's right.
Okay, fantastic. Listen, we've I think we had a conversation. I don't know. I think was it recently? I know. Listen, I'm an old geezer now, mate. Our brains don't get mushy, but that's why I thought it'd be interesting to do a Paint Toolkit interview, because I think it's important that what you're doing, others learn about. Now, what I quite like about what the work that you're doing is because a lot of people live with long-term pain. They're seen by a healthcare professional, one tutor, one could be a physio, or other trainers or whatnot, other osteopaths, chiropractors. And they talk to them about exercise and stuff like that. And for a lot of people, exercise, because a lot of people they tried that because even me back in the day. It was exercise or movement equaled pain.
Yeah.
Because no one really explained to me until I went onto the pain management program input about pacing up. And in the end, now, as I found, that actually by keeping moving and regular stretching exercise, it actually allows I can keep my pain levels down, so I can get on with stuff and whatnot. So, Emma, can you give me a bit of a background on, so how did this originate, and what you're doing and how you're actually driving it forward?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Interesting topic. Yeah, because I would never call what I'm doing exercise, even though people are moving. So I think that's really interesting. So how I ended up getting involved in this, so I have a very good friend who's a physiotherapist in Ireland, and she works with people who are living with persistent pain. And we talked a lot about the differences between the way she works and the way I work. And one of the things that came up was around kind of motivations or the intention behind the movement. So, a physio might say, well, I know it's effective if you do, a repetition of 10 to 20 of these each day. But actually to engage someone in doing that is quite difficult unless they're very self-motivated. So yeah, so one of the things with the movement approach that we're working with, it's more about finding that person's internal motivation or intention behind the movement, or else stimulating it creatively. Like I know yourself, one of the things you talked about was reaching for something, reaching for apples or whatever it is. So creating a kind of imaginary thing you're going for to help motivate someone for movement. And the other thing is that they're like explorations in movement. So rather than saying, like I just had a hip injury from running, so I went to the physio and I got exercises to do and I got really bored. So one of the things I did was I said, this is going to be an exploration. It's going to be an experiment. So instead of doing 10 of those and 10 of those, what I'm going to do is I'll see, well, what does it feel like to do this movement or that movement? And I'll try a different movement. I'll invent my own. So trying to find a creative way to engage myself in movement. So that's maybe some way to start answering your question.
Yeah, it does. What do you mean by intention?
Yeah.
What does that actually mean? Because that's not something people like me would actually. Well, what's that about? What do you actually mean by that?
So your intention would be your motivation to move. So most people, you know, I'm going to cross the room to get something. I'm going to reach to the cupboard because I want to get the coffee out of it. But when you're trying to encourage someone to exercise, you're just saying, well, just repeat this 10 times. There's no intention behind it. So that makes it harder to engage people in the movement unless they imagine a reason they might be doing it. Or another way can be, like I was explaining with exploring. What feels good? What do I find difficult? Am I interested in this? That kind of thing.
So would you sort of include like well-known movements like yoga and Pilates? I mean, do you include that in what you're doing?
Yeah, so we have had some yoga teachers in with us. So things also like Alexander technique, I know you're aware of, Feldenkrais, and then some kind of ones that are less known or less well used in pain. So one that I specialize in is called authentic movement. So it's more on the creative end of the movement exploration rather than, I'd say Alexander technique is quite structured in comparison with authentic movement. But all of these movement practices share common interests, one of which is that you as the mover are the expert in your own movement. So we may have things we'd like to share and explore with you, but you're the person who says, no, this works for me. I'm interested in this. So that's quite important.
Do you know what you hit a nail on the head is about? So the thing is, what happens with us with long-term pain is that when we start seeing the healthcare professionals, what tends to happen is they take us out of the driving seat and put us in the passenger seat, and we're sort of led. Well, I think this is what I think you need to be doing now, and even I've heard people say, well, doctor, what do you think I need to be doing? So we become sort of switched off.
Yeah.
So it's interesting what you're saying is, well, for us to find out how that works, we'll try it out. What happens if I do this? I remember back end of last year, I had a quite severe setback with my pain. My own fault really, because I was doing some new exercises down the gym. I didn't warm up my upper back enough, and everything didn't like it, and it really moaned quite a bit. But what I did, because of what I'm doing now, I have that confidence, and that's what lacks with a lot of us people, is we lack that confidence to go out searching. We're thinking, well, what happens what should I ask the doctor first or the physio, rather than saying, well, let's try it out. And I remember going on YouTube, and because the setback plan I normally have wasn't working, I had to tear it up. So I went on YouTube and I started thinking, well, that looks a bit interesting. I'll try that out. And to me, all those things I was investigating and were trying out were actually really beneficial for me. So how do we switch people back on again? That's my question to you both.
Well, so again, one of the principles of this kind of work that we do is about self-awareness. So the first step is getting to know what your body wants and what it likes.
How do we find that out, though? How do we find out how do we get this awareness?
How do you get awareness? Oh my gosh, that's a big question. But I just, okay, so I'll return to that in a second, but I was just remembering something you said. You had watched a program recently about the opioid crisis, and there was a woman that you said, I haven't seen this TV show now, but you had said on Twitter, while she was speaking, she was moving and she was tilting over and back. And so what we're trying to do with these movement practices is bring attention to those body cues. So you're moving from side to side. So your body is telling you something about how it wants to move. So with these movement practices, we want to bring awareness to things that are already happening. So how do you do that? Well, I don't think it's as easy as it sounds. It's so simple. But I think you're trying to train your attention to really focus on sensation, any kind of movements that are starting to happen in your body. You're exploring a bit. You're bringing your curiosity. These are some things, I don't know, maybe Bernie or you, Pete, might have ideas yourself.
The whole of this was kind of fairly new to me, although I'd done yoga and Pilates and a little bit of Alexander technique before. So some of the ideas that underpin this movement practice were new to me. And I think one of the things that's been really interesting has been the way in which people are given permission to sort of attend to their bodies, and rather than sort of maybe attend to the pain, attend to a bit of their body that is feeling well. So you might have, I don't know if you have pain in your back, you might actually just start to think about your hand, because your hand is a safe place. And one of the things these practices always start with is you feeling safe, you feeling secure, you feeling in charge and in control, which isn't always the case when you've been kind of prescribed a set of, sort of a routine set of exercises to do. So if you ask somebody to think about the hand, they kind of look at it and go, it's my hand. But if you've got somebody who's instructing you and guiding you, they'll say, okay, think about your little finger. What's happening in your little finger at the moment? How does your little finger feel? Touch your little finger. See what response you get to it. And it starts to attune people to their body in a way that people, I think, particularly who've got persistent pain, don't, because they're attuned to the limits of their body and to the boundaries and excesses of their pain. Whereas if they can be attuned to kind of maybe part of their body that is feeling good or is feeling safe or is feeling okay, that then gives them courage to then start to attend to other bits. Because the sense is that everything hurts. And usually, unless you're absolutely at the very worst stage of a very bad pain crisis, there's usually some bit of you that you could find that isn't actually sort of shouting at you, that you can attend to. So I think that attention and awareness is quite important. It's quite beautiful, actually, and quite revealing, and people have been quite interested and shocked by it.
It's funny you say about where the pain is in lots of areas. A lot of people, I tell you, most of the emails I get from people each day are from people with fibromyalgia.
Yeah.
They tell me that they've got pain all over.
Yeah.
I know, like, but when I first started doing this 20 years ago, I'd never heard of the fibromyalgia, but it just seems to have sort of come out of some, it's bloomed out of to a hell of a lot of people now with fibromyalgia, and they say that it hurts all over their body, on a majority of their body. So how would you? So someone comes along and you say, yeah, I'd like to get moving, but I've got this blinking pain that's all over my body, like I've got fibromyalgia. So where would you start with someone like that?
Gosh, that's a really good question, Pete. So what stage we're at, we got a little bit of money to create a network that's looking at pain and these movement practices. So we're kind of in early days, but we'd like to be able to answer those questions. So we're at the moment getting people together, asking questions, and now we're going to create projects which we can test things out properly with people who have different kinds of pain. I do know there's some research done around Feldenkrais and fibromyalgia, which I'll have to dig out to find those answers for you. But how I would generally work with someone, you kind of just start from where they're at. You know, what is moving? Does absolutely everything feel awful? Is there anywhere in your body that you would feel, oh, I'd like to move that? Is there some particular pain that you think, actually, is there anything I can move around it? Like, I have neck pain here from sitting at the desk, you know. And sometimes just to move with the pain can find some relief in moving around it, you know. So I don't fully have the answers for you yet, but I hope that we're moving towards that.
You know, I love that answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called being honest. I think a lot of, I know a lot sometimes, you know, especially back in the day for me, like I'm pretty sure a lot of the healthcare professionals pretty much guessing or something, or trying to remember what they've read somewhere, you know. Going back to the lady, actually, it was a BBC television programme where about the opioid problem that we have now in the UK. And the doctor, the interviewer, his name escapes me, and she was, I could stand up a little bit, but she was sort of moving and she was just rocking herself like that. And she said, "This is the only thing that really helps me." And I thought, to me, the answer's screaming, you know, I'm saying, well, yeah, because your body wants to move.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, and the doctor never picked up on it. And, yeah, you know, it can be a body saying, yeah, I actually want to move, but she's still in protection mode. You know, so you know, to me, movement is life, you know, keep moving, etc.
I think as well, like if someone is in a very difficult situation, maybe it's important to give themselves a break, you know, and say, well, okay, today all I can do is move my fingers, you know, and you know, I think important part of movement is also stillness and noticing small movement, like your breathing is a movement, and allowing yourself to be where you are right now and think, well, okay, maybe in 10 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, I'll feel differently. This is where I'm at now, and that's okay.
I think when I worked in the NHS on the expert patients program, I always remember everybody come along to the program. They all had to do an action plan. You know what they're going to. It was a 6-week course and a 6-week program, and each week, from weeks 1 to 5, they had to set an action plan. And I always remember one lady. A lot of people sort of saying, "God, that doesn't sound a lot." And all she wanted to do really was to walk around the garden. Mm. And the joy in her face when she came back the following week and said, I can't remember the lady's name, so many years ago, but how did you get on? And, oh yeah, do you know what? I really enjoyed it. I didn't race around. I stopped and smelt, you know, the flowers and what was growing, looking at the garden. But the woman had been so fearful of movement, of the fear of actually would increase her pain so much that she, you know, her confidence had gone just walking around her garden. But the joy on her face was worth $1 million really, you know. Mm-hmm. So it just, as you say, it's starting off small and then gradually up. But like I'm interviewing you, but I mean, last week I haven't been to the gym since Thursday, and it's my first day back this morning, and but the old Pete would have been, oh, I haven't been here, I've got to get cracking, But I realised that I had to start off from a lower, you know, I was on number 10 on the hamster wheel on Thursday. Mm. Now I wound it back to a number 6, so that I wasn't overcooking it, you know, overdoing it. Because otherwise I know, because us lot, see, we're overachievers. We want to be like everything, keep up with everybody else, etc. But taking it gently, pacing up and stuff like that.
I think one of the things that's really interesting is how non-competitive and how kind of like goal targeted the movements are that people have done. So in a room of maybe 20 people doing movements, everybody is doing movements within their own preferences, and there's nothing that's sort of saying like you need to do 5. It's a case of move. If they were focusing on perhaps a leg movement, it would be a case of move your leg if you want to, move it a small amount or a larger amount, but don't move it to the point that you're kind of feeling pressured about it. So that bit where you feel that you've got to do, I don't know, 5 movements and 10 repetitions, and you feel bad that you haven't done them, and then you go to see your healthcare professional and confess that you've not completed all of your exercises, which puts you in a position of being a failure. Here, everything to do is much more to do with the fact that you have achieved and you have explored and you have developed. So I think that's a kind of a very big mindset change for people coming into kind of like these sorts of movement practices.
Okay, so we talked about what you do, and you brushed on it, Emma, briefly about the project. So what's the next steps? I mean, can you tell viewers where they can? I know I'm going to put some details on the slide for YouTube and etc. But I know they may miss that. But how can they? Have you got a website, and how can people contact you?
Yeah, we have a somatics and pain website, and we'll send the link. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we've done some blogs, we've made a little video all about what we're doing. And we've held kind of a couple of small workshops to get ideas going. And the next step then is we'll do a more public symposium. So we'll share the information on that on our social media and website soon. And the idea is to kind of make a more public platform where people come along, experience these movement approaches, have conversations with people in health, in dance, and people living with pain to see, how is this useful? Are there particular groups of people who would find it useful? So if you have any suggestions as well, Pete, as to what you might like to see at a symposium, you're welcome to let us know. That's kind of the big next step we're working towards now. And also we'll have to write an article. So we've been reviewing literature in the area, and we're building towards applying for other funding for projects as well.
So I'm going to be a bit of devil's advocate here, because at the moment, as we're filming this, we've got this coronavirus business, and getting groups of people together may not be possible. So do you envisage, I mean, we don't know how long this is going to carry on for, months, weeks, I hope to say it's not longer than that. But so your project's up and running. I mean, will you be able to do, getting people involved by using something like Zoom concepts or Skype?
I think that would be great. So obviously this is really recent with the coronavirus, so we hadn't sort of factored that in. But the symposium isn't supposed to be till October, so there's a bit of time yet. But I think it would be really good, actually, especially with a lot of people who are living with pain. They're not always able to travel, so it would be really nice to have some kind of way they could access it without having to travel that far.
What about with your project? You have some, people who find out how people got. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a researcher, dude, but split the project in half and do one bit where you do it via via this sort of platform, and do the other half where people actually, meet up, physically meet up.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll have to. Yeah, Bernie, sounds like a good idea. I like that idea.
Yeah, I mean, one of the parts of the project that we've not talked about very much is that we are interested in digital technology. So we've talked to some people who've used movement practices and developed apps that provide some support to people that are actually exploring it. We saw one that was a really beautiful one where one of the practitioners works with children in a hospital, and she teaches mothers how to use her techniques to reduce pain in children and to help them become calm and settled and comfortable. And her app actually supports mothers to continue to do that work when she's not there. So I think we're really keen to use technology in a way that actually supports stuff, because it actually adds to the reach. It means more people can actually engage, and it's potentially
Let me tell you
a more accessible way.
let me tell you how I used technology yesterday. Yesterday I went to London. My niece was getting married, and she got a little baby, and the registrar had to ask her and her future husband to go into another room, I guess, to ask questions, you know. And her Poppy, the baby, was with us, like all us old up, you know, the families and whatnot. And she was crying her eyes out. And everybody, yeah, okay, yeah, making all sort of noises and stuff like that. And I thought, well, hang on a minute. So I went onto YouTube and got that video, the wheels on the bus go round and round.
Yeah.
You know? Happy days, mate. She was showing it to her on her phone. Peace and quiet. Again, see, using tech. They're going, how do you know? Well, this bit, Pete, why have you got that on your phone? And I said, oh, hey, I just went to YouTube.
Yeah.
The technology, we've got it out there,
yeah.
but we're not using it, you know? You know, like we're doing, I'm working with Teesside University to do a virtual reality app, you know, for people with pain. Like, so I think that technology is going to be, I think where possible, where we can meet up in person, but I think with travel costs going up, and as you said as well, Emma, that, you know, people that live in rural areas, you know, who live with pain, they can't always get to a venue, or the high cost of getting to the venue would could eat into their budget and whatnot, you know. So I think it's, you know, technology and saving travel costs and whatnot will be, well, be great for the environment.
I think it's got like its pros and cons, because I think some people who work with dance and movement fear the loss of the physical in-person, you know, even things like touch or the social stuff afterwards. But on the other hand, I think, you know, we're living a different kind of world and we use technology all the time. So it's important to respond to that and actually think about its use value and think, yeah, well, not everyone's going to be able to be in person. So maybe this is adding on to that rather than taking away from it, you know.
When I went into London yesterday, I was down of an hour's ride into London. Everybody was watching that, or they're lappy. Or I was even on the underground, or it was all rounding like sardines. I was all, you know, like this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm on
it can't be too much, you know.
Technology seems to be king at the moment.
Yeah.
But listen, let's do, when your project is up and when your project's up and running, you know, let's find out. Let's do another one of these. Let's find out this is where we are now, but find out where things are rocking and rolling, and how it's actually changing people's perception of pain and or managing it, I guess, you know. So anyway, so we come to the end of the interview. Just want to say thank you very much, Emma. Thank you very much, Bernie, for taking part. And so we'll do another one of these once you've got things rocking and rolling. Thanks again for everybody watching the video. I'll be posting all the fairly new ones, like this one, on the Pain Toolkit website. I'll pin it to one of the news sections. I've got a new website coming up soon. Scott promises me it's going to be ready on the 20th of March, 21st of March, something like that. So we'll have a dedicated link there as with all the vids. So thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you again on another Pain Toolkit interview. Thanks now. Take care.